Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us with the EDC Coffee Chat this morning. Today, we have Marc Abshire with us, and he, along with a lot of partners, have been developing COIN, the Clallam Opportunity Investment Network, on behalf of the Clallam County business community, investor community. And so we're very pleased to have him join us. Just a few housekeeping details. Please put yourself on mute so that any background noise doesn't interfere with the presentation. And if you'd like to ask a question, please either put your question in the chat and I'll call on you, or alternatively, raise your hand and I'll call on you to ask your question of Marc. If you'd rather I ask it for you, you can just write that in the chat. So this is being recorded and we will have it on our Choose Clallam First site later on in the day. So thank you very much, Marc, for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you, Colleen. First, I want to say, you're doing such a great job at EDC. I want to thank you for all the work you do. So I'm not being patronizing there. I really mean it. You've taken it up several notches, and we're all benefiting from it. So thank you for that. I want to talk about COIN today, and I appreciate the opportunity to introduce COIN to this group. It stands for Clallam Opportunity Investment Network. It is not a new phenomenon in our nation. It's something that's been around for quite a while, actually. And that phenomenon is known as local investment networks. And the local investment network program is something that is regulated by the SEC. And there are rules, both federal and state, that govern how these local investment networks are supposed to work. But at base, it's really all about making it possible for local communities, especially rural communities, for example, to set up kind of like micro lending programs in a way, and allows for community members to support the growth of the business economy in very direct and tangible ways. In a legal fashion, and so really the way we view it in the COIN network is we want to provide the opportunity for entrepreneurs in our community to find funding sources and other support, by the way, which is important part of COIN, but funding sources to get their great business plan, their great business model and idea off the ground. So as many of you know, starting a business is no small task. There's a lot of pieces and parts, a lot of things. One of those is finding the capital to get going. And often small businesses that are just getting off the ground don't really have access to capital, and they're not going to find it in many cases at your standard bank or your standard bank loan. And so many of them actually just go to the credit card bank. They just use their credit cards to get their business started. And that's just not necessarily the best way to go about that. So, but the local investment networks provide an avenue for those budding entrepreneurs to establish relationships with other members of the community who can give them a loan. The reason why it's tough to get a bank loan is because many banks will not loan for amounts less than $25,000 to a startup business, for example, and it's just difficult for them to underwrite that sort of thing. So local investment networks allow for those budding entrepreneurs who need maybe just, $5,000 or a couple $1,000 or somewhere between that and $25,000 to get their business established. So there's lots of different sources of funding for that, but the local investment network as program allows for local people to be the lender, and in a way that becomes a win-win-win for everybody. And so what we're kind of hoping for with COIN is to develop a group of local people who have a couple bucks laying around with that they're willing to loan to entrepreneurs. You don't have to have a lot of money. The exciting thing for me is that we were going to make it possible for people that just have, I don't know, a couple $1,000 laying around that they are willing to loan to somebody. You don't have to be a big bankroll type person to be involved, but your couple $1,000 might actually really help somebody out who just needs that amount and can get them going. So the key, I think, though, is that COIN doesn't really get involved in any of those loan arrangements or anything. The role and the mission of COIN is to put those entrepreneurs together with the folks who want to help them out. And then COIN steps aside and lets them develop that relationship between the two of them, or the group of them and the entrepreneur. And from that relationship, potentially there could be some funding that will help out that startup business. So we could talk, I'm sure there's going to be questions, and we could talk a little bit more about the details and all that, but I do want to and we'll probably open up our website and stuff eventually here, but in a minute. But I want to talk a little bit about the history of COIN. So COIN actually kind of started about 7 or so years ago, and it was Western Washington University kind of led effort. Clea Rome was kind of getting it going, and a group of people, some of them still involved, were trying to get it going, and it really didn't take off for a variety of reasons. And at the same time, and actually maybe just prior to that, another local investment network was starting up in Jefferson County called LION, the Local Investor Opportunity Network. And so LION took a different path and actually got well established. And so LION's been around for, I think, 8 years or something, and has done has put entrepreneurs together with local community investors to the tune of, I don't know, I don't have the figures, but it's millions of dollars. So I don't know how many millions, but it's they're doing really well in LION. And so recognizing that, we kind of picked it up, Colleen and I, and some Craft 3 folks, and Rick Dickinson out of CIE and the SBDC. We all kind of got together a few years ago and decided, doggone it, we really do want to make this happen in Clallam County too. And so we are patterning ourselves after LION because they're so successful. And thankfully to the LION folks, they've been more than happy to advise us, participate in our meetings, and just, really be a great model for COIN. And to be truthful, actually, LION is in many ways the model local investment network for the entire nation. Really, they're further along than anybody else that I know of. And so out of the success of LION, these local investment networks are actually popping up all around the state of Washington, which kind of leads the country in these local investment networks now. And so Clallam is just, the COIN program is really just kind of stepping in, and it took me and the chamber way too long. We got interrupted a little bit by a thing called COVID last year, because the intent was to get COIN going actually in 2019 or 2020. So here we are in 2021, and we finally have it. I'm really excited about it. It's a win-win for everybody. You could be a local community enthusiast, somebody who just loves your community, loves to help out entrepreneurs, and you can make a difference. And it provides an opportunity for everybody to kind of get involved and actually make a tangible difference. So we finally were able to establish a website, and there's a lot of information there. There's going to be more. That's the other message this morning, is that COIN, we haven't really flipped a switch and it's up and operating beautifully. It's an evolving program. The website will have a lot more information on it, but the way to get involved is to join COIN, and you can join off the website. And when you join, it doesn't cost anything. There's no fee for joining. You just provide your information, and then once you do that, you'll be included in communications about opportunities to meet entrepreneurs and those kinds of things. And also have access to information that will help you determine how deeply you want to get involved, or just keep aware of how the program is evolving. So I encourage anybody who's somewhat interested at all to join COIN, to send in your application. It's an online application. It's very simple. It takes 5 minutes or something. And that will help us get COIN, really moving along. The other kind of exciting part of this is we've actually scheduled the first entrepreneur showcase or presentations. So we were going to do that later this month, but just too hard to gather everybody indoors. So we've pushed that off to February 5th. So that's something you can put on your calendar. It's the 5th of February at Seven Cedars Resort. We're going to have, we're hoping to have 8 or more local entrepreneurs who are going to present their business cases. And you, as a member of COIN, you'll be invited to that event on the 5th of February. We're going to be talking about COIN today, and I'll be answering as many questions as I can. But we also have scheduled next week on the 27th of October, I guess that's a week from tonight, in the evening. I think it starts at 5, might be 6, but it's on the website. It's on the ClallamInvest.com website. But we're going to have an investor 101 workshop presentation. And that's going to be a time for anybody who's really interested to get kind of a little deeper into some of the mechanics of how it works. There's I'm sure people have questions if you've never given a loan to a small business before, and many of us have not. There's templates for loan documents and all kinds of help for you with rules and that sort of thing. The other event that's coming up besides the workshop a week from tonight is on November 10th. The Chamber monthly meeting is going to be also about COIN, but that one's going to be one where we're going to have 2 and maybe 3 local entrepreneurs giving presentations on their business cases. These are like 5 to 8 minute presentations about their business, just as a kind of a prep in a way for a dry run for presentations. That'll be a Zoom meeting, the monthly meeting. So it's online. It's not nearly as effective, but it's a chance for us to kind of start a dialogue and a way to kind of get this program going in prep for the February 5th in-person presentations that are going to happen. So that's a lot. I'm glad you're recording this, Colleen, because I forgot what I even have said so far. But I think it's probably a good time to maybe share your screen, Colleen, maybe, and bring up the website real quick, and we'll just kind of point a few things out to folks. And also, as you're doing that, we can maybe start answering questions if people have a burning question they'd like to ask.
So, Marc, I'd love for you to go through your website here. That looks really great, and I love that you chose our community, and it looks very vibrant and inviting. So great job with that. What I'm wondering about is, these are typically for startups, right? And small existing companies, but really, that's the lifeblood of our businesses in Clallam County, is the really small businesses. And right now we've got idle loans that go all the way up to $2 million now. So, I mean, it's an amazing program for for-profit businesses. It's just 3.75%, and you don't have to make any payments for the first 2 years, but that's not for startups, as I understand. So, but what's the low end? I mean, when would someone, if you were working with someone, at what point would you say, okay, you've got this array of resources here for funding? At what point do you, take them to recommend that they look into COIN?
Yeah, COIN will be for, I think, the startup type businesses, the entrepreneurs who are just trying to get off the ground, and their capital requirements are modest. So somebody who doesn't need more than, I would say, $20,000. If you need less than $20,000, you're a pretty good candidate for COIN. And I would guess, because we haven't seen this yet, but the $10,000 range is probably a really good target, I guess. Those entrepreneurs that need not a whole lot of money, but just enough, and don't mind having a loan that generally the loan terms are in the I think 5 to 8% range, and then a term of generally around 4 years, something like that. But actually, those terms are decided on between the investor and the entrepreneur. That's something they negotiate between the two of them. And so at the point that that a business can't get an idle loan or a bank loan or any of the other sources, and there are many others, but they do have stipulations. So the thing that's interesting about a COIN loan, a COIN guided loan, is that their only requirement is that the person giving the loan and the entrepreneur receiving the loan have a relationship. So under the SEC umbrella, these loans are considered what they call friends and family loans. And that's why you don't have to be an accredited investor. You can be somebody like me or anybody who's not an accredited investor to actually give a loan to a small business. So the reason why that is possible is because of the friends and family definition that the SEC has given to local investment networks. So that's why it's really important that this program and any local investment network program like it is really all about relationships. You have to establish a relationship between the two parties so that it can qualify as a friends and family loan, and the investor does not have to be accredited.
Okay. So I would think, though, I mean, if I'm an investor and I'm thinking about loaning $10,000, considering a big percentage of startups fail within the first 5 years, that term, the interest rate seems pretty low for the high risk involved. So I guess you'd really have to check into their business plan and feel very comfortable about it. But do you envision also, I mean, because if they borrowed money off a credit card, it's going to be 25%.
Right.
And so do you envision potentially a higher interest rate as well, higher than 8%?
You know, it really depends on what the investor is willing to risk, you know, at the risk level. But I think the other part that I haven't really covered here is that coin entrepreneurs that we will be putting forward for consideration to the coin investors will have already gone through a great deal of mentorship and really a lot of work to develop a business plan that can succeed. And so a really important part of COIN is the important work that Rick Dennison and the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship are doing. So Rick and his team are working with these entrepreneurs to help them develop and mature their business plans. And so just starting out the blocks, investors or participants in COIN can rest assured that they're not going to be looking at presentations from entrepreneurs that are unvetted. I mean, these are vetted business plans that have gone through a lot of scrutiny and work. So having said that, every investor needs to take ownership of their own due diligence. So that even though a lot of that work has been done, they still need to feel comfortable, with the risk that giving a loan that comes with giving a loan. And so that's a lot of the reason why the relationship is really important. We're hoping that what this results in is, an entrepreneur with a great idea, a great business plan will really spark an interest in a local investor who believes in that business. So first of all, they believe in the community. They want to help growth of entrepreneurs in our community. Second of all, they're really excited about a particular business that, means something to them. And then they do their due diligence on the risk and the business plan that's being proffered and presented. And they establish that relationship and it goes forward. Because the other part of this that I mentioned at the beginning is COIN's not just about setting up relationships between investors and entrepreneurs. It's also to the point of maybe access to some funding, but it also develops a culture where an investor provides a loan, but then they also have skin in the game. So now they're interested in the success of this business that they've invested in. And so what we're hoping is that investor will also provide advice, support, other kinds of support besides just funding. Actually promote the business, provide advice to them, and other kinds of support beyond just some dollars.
So do you want to go through the website, or would you like Rick to speak? I know Rick Dickinson is on with us.
Yeah, I'd love for Rick to talk. And really, I just want to, we could go through it real quick because I really encourage other people to go through it themselves. There's not a whole lot there yet. Like I said, it's an evolving program. But if you click on the upcoming events, Colleen, that will kind of speak to the events that I mentioned. There's the February 5th event that I encourage people to register for. And then of course, the workshop I mentioned earlier, that's a week from tonight. If you're at all interested in COIN, Jim Williams is an outstanding presenter. He really knows his stuff. He's very good. It's an hour. It starts at 5 a week from tonight. So register for that. I highly encourage that as well. And then the next tab over, investors, if you click on that, Colleen, there's the apply for membership, the drop down, or either one. Yeah, if you just, there you go. And that'll take you to the form that you fill out. And it's really, it'll take you 5 minutes to submit that form. So, and then there's a few other, there's other information. There's some information there about due diligence, things to consider. We're going to be expanding that quite a bit. And the FAQs as well need to be need to be expanded. But basically, it's not fully baked, but it's a start, and we're excited to grow it. And so I think that's enough probably to go through the website. But I would love to have Rick say a few words if you'd like, and anybody else on the COIN team that's helped us get this established. I know that Erica Lindholm from Craft 3 has been involved with us in the past, and then the NODC has helped out. So I don't know if anybody from there is on, but Rick, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so Rick, what have I missed? Please elaborate.
Yeah, and I want to apologize in advance. I am in transit. I'm driving, so if there's any background noise, I apologize for that. Great. I loved how you have presented it, Mark. One of the things I guess I would like to add is that when you're thinking about ROI on these investments, and this is definitely the approach that folks in Jefferson County and Lyon have taken, is that this is really an opportunity not just to help a business get started, but to shape the community and really have a hand in supporting businesses that in some way give back to the community, or sometimes they'll have a particular focus, like, hey, we want to help businesses that somehow help us get more housing in our community, or some folks have a focus on local agriculture, and so they want to really support local small farms. And so that's part of the approach, is that the ROI is there's some social capital, there's community benefit is we'd love to see in our community, but by giving folks just a small leg up when they're getting rolling, we can have a hand in that. So I think that's the other piece I would say. So to your point about, you're taking on some risk, and it seems like there might be a need for a higher interest rate. Again, is between the individual lenders, and I will say that I've had some entrepreneurs over in Jefferson County working with Lyon who've been able to turn down the higher interest rate loans because people have been willing to give them lower interest rates because they really believe in what they're doing. And so I mean, in some ways there is a negotiation where, especially with some of the entrepreneurs that have gotten a little bit more, a little further along, that they actually have some leverage, and saying, we've got a lot of interested people in what we're doing. And it does run, I guess that's the other thing I would say is, we focus on entrepreneurs who are quote unquote unbankable at traditional banks. And that can be that the dollar size of their loan is small. It can also be that they don't have a track record. You know, a lot of banks just have a pretty bright line around 2 years of 2 years of profitable business before they're going to loan to a company. And so there's a number of factors that can make a business quote unquote unbankable. And that is where the community investors can really step in and fill an important gap. So these might not always be brand new or even pre-venture businesses. They can run right up to a couple years and even further. And I know that one thing that happens with Lyon is that they build relationships, and they'll give an initial loan, and then that loan will get paid back, and they'll be like, hey, here's another one, you know? So that ultimately is what I know our group is really hoping to see, is that we build a community of entrepreneurs and investors, and kind of an ecosystem of this is really the overall vision, and not thinking of it in terms of one-off loans, but kind of an overall effort that will really build the economy here in Clallam County.
Mm-hmm. All right, thanks, Rick. So I see that Kai has a question. Kai, do you want to ask your question? Now I understand you have 90 megabits per second, so Maybe you could even turn on your screen because you're up from 6, right?
Oh, thank you. Yes, my question is COIN as a second step planning to identify accredited investors, and is there a benefit in terms of the kinds of information that without SEC liability can be provided by businesses looking for funds to those investors? I know that in other cases, sometimes accredited investors are requested to confirm their status, and then they can get projections and other things that are helpful to them to evaluate the business that they're thinking about investing in.
And Kai, can you explain to everyone the definition for accredited investor?
Accredited investors meet a certain minimum criteria established by the SEC, either in terms of income or assets. So it is there are different levels, but I think it's like a couple of $1 million of assets, not including your primary residence, or 200 or 250,000 of annual income. And there's some other criteria. And if you meet any one of those, you're an accredited investor. And usually you self-certify. I mean, you don't have to supply W-2 pay stubs or copies of your bank statements. You just say, I'm an accredited investor, I meet this criterion, and then you can get that information. And then presumably you're precluded from later suing the business saying, well, you misled me, I was unsophisticated, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, so Kai, I guess the best answer for you is that COIN is definitely not about accredited investors. So this is the COIN investors are not, they don't need to be accredited. They're not intended to be accredited. And that's really not what the program is about. However, and this is something I have to look into because you've asked, but I think accredited investors are not precluded from participating in COIN. And so that's something that we got to look into. How do we accommodate the accredited investors and go forward that way? I think if you establish a local investment network loan with an entrepreneur, for example, and you are an accredited investor, I'm not sure what that means as far as your status. So that's something we have to look into.
Okay.
I just
Second question quickly is COIN planning to have a template loan agreement that at their choice borrower and lender can modify or use?
Yes, we plan to have a few to several different templates that parties can use to get started with. Exactly.
Great.
Thank you.
I was just going to bring up about Craft 3, and then I saw Erica turned her camera on. So Erica, I know your program's also an option for businesses, general or specific types. And we also had the funding from the county last year from the Opportunity Funds. Can you speak to your programs as well?
Sure. Yeah, and just first I wanted to follow up on Kai's comment and I'll then switch over to Craft 3. But Kai, I think if I understood your question correctly, it sounded like you were suggesting that projections could not be provided to investors, but I think absolutely, accredited or not, any investor working with a potential borrower as part of COIN can request projections. And I think Rick, CIE, and the SBDC are available to assist in preparing those projections. And yeah, absolutely, that it's totally up to the COIN participating investor to do their due diligence and ask all questions that they want. So I don't think that's if that's what your question was. I just wanted to clarify.
Well, that certainly is helpful, particularly with startup businesses with no track record. I've seen other situations where when one requests projections from a business, one is thinking about investing, and they say, well, you first have to certify you're an accredited investor before we give you the projections because our council has blah, 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 blah. If in general, people can get projections without being accredited investors, obviously that greatly simplifies the
Yeah.
process from the investor's perspective for a business with no track record.
Right, right. I think the difference is that, you know, somebody, when it's just a discussion between the investor and the borrower or potential borrower, you know, you're just like sharing information. You know, it's not like the borrower is putting out those projections and saying, "Hey, come invest in me, everybody." You know. They're not doing a public offering kind of thing. So I think maybe that's the distinction.
Thank you.
Sure. And then, yeah, I just want to commend CIE and Marc at the Chamber and Colleen at EDC and everybody else. I'm so grateful to see this getting going again, because yes, Craft 3 is, if it can lend to startups, but our smallest dollar amount is $25,000. And even you know, even though we're getting more streamlined ourselves, we are still an institution that has minimum sort of underwriting standards that we need to have for our the investors that invest in Craft 3 to re-lend. And so, you know, sometimes it's even more, you know, a startup business is going to need a business plan. And if that's pretty thorough, and if, you know, they're asking for just 25, or sometimes they need a little less than 25, but they say, "Oh, I could borrow more just to meet your minimum." And I'm like, no, that's not the point. Like, let's make sure that you just borrow what you need, right? So I think if businesses have the opportunity to cobble together funds from a collective of COIN investors to get started, that's a great option, and Craft 3 can come in later when their needs have grown. And Colleen, you asked about the county funds that we had, that, you know, we did not deploy all of those funds. The county gave us a timeline, and so those were returned, or you know, not because they needed to put them elsewhere. And I think that is, so that's what I think we did 157,000 in loans through that business resilience loan program that was supported by the county funds from last year's emergency funding. So
Great, got it. So when you say Craft 3 can come in later, does that mean that you could be in second place position, or when you come in, do the other loans need to be paid off and you're in first place position?
Typically we would, it depends. It really varies. You know, typically if we're going to be doing a larger loan and we see that the business can support it, we would just take out the other loans that are there, and then it just simplifies things. If you know, the business needs to go into a workout situation or something, and we're not negotiating between 6 people or whatever. But you know, we have got a loan to Finn River that was for a specific element of what they were doing, and their commercial kitchen expansion, and all the other investors stayed in. They were funding other elements and that of their business. So it really varies and would be on a case-by-case basis.
So, and Jay had a comment.
And I was just pointing out that it's almost impossible to overemphasize the personal relationship between the investor and the receiver. There is no intermediary. I think COIN is almost just a way of connecting people, and then you're going to get out of the way.
Correct.
And so in working with here in Jefferson County with some of the Lion investors, almost everyone tells me they invest in the person. It really, you get to know the person, you get to know the business, you walk through. Any information that you're looking for is almost always provided, because if they don't provide the information, they're not going to get the loan.
Yeah.
And it really is a very personal activity.
So I have seen over and over again and heard about the need for connecting entrepreneurs and existing business owners that want to sell their business. On next month is Global Entrepreneurship Month, and Mike Reikoff and I, our local SBDC advisor, are giving a presentation on, so you're thinking of selling your business, what's it worth? And so the whole process of EBITDA, earnings before income, before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's really sexy. And but what I've seen over and over and over again, and I work with realtors pretty regularly as they are approached by a business owner to say, hey, I want to retire and I want you to sell my business. And then how the heck do you value that? Whether or not they have a real estate associated with it. When I did commercial real estate in the county in the up until 2011, my rule of thumb was I would help a business owner if they did not own real estate, and I would have them become my client if they did own real estate, because there's so much risk in selling a business. So, and valuing that business, because the business portion of it is oftentimes very separate from the real estate. And you're really buying a set of books and a story, because you cannot feel and touch, all of those, the cash flow. So there's a lot of risk involved there. And what I'd find is either a business would, way too often, like Primo's, it was such a miss that we let Primo Construction go out of business. They were our only vertical construction union company in our county, and they were not sold. They just sold their assets and their real estate. But then there's the other side of the coin, where really great businesses, like take a shot in the dark trying to assess what their business is worth. And the world of mergers and acquisitions is a really sophisticated environment, and they use EBITDA, but they also they spend so much time and money, like $300,000-$400,000 just doing the due diligence on a business. And so if the business is only worth $200,000-$300,000, there's no point in putting all that time and effort into it. And the people that are in the world of mergers and acquisitions, those buyers typically never intend, those investors never intend to actually work in their business. And our businesses here are it's a business where you're also buying a job. And so, and another element is business owners frequently only pay themselves $20,000 a year for themselves and their spouse. And no one's going to buy a business and a job to pay themselves so little. So we've been at Clallam EDC, we've been working on a program to connect businesses that are in existence that are thinking about selling, and then also those buyers that might want to purchase without getting, too much information out there. And I'm wondering if maybe that should be wrapped in somehow, or a separate element, or maybe a page that directs them back to what Clallam EDC is doing. But there are a lot of parallels in this. And our intention is not to, kind of like COIN, is just to make those introductions, but signing non-disclosure agreements and just a real brief description. Here's your net operating income and, number of employees, and maybe even probably not the industry, but I don't know. And then making that introduction. So anyway, I see Rick has his hand up. Go ahead, Rick.
Thanks, Colleen. And
Wait, before you clear, Rick, let me just respond to what Colleen said. So I think you're right, Colleen. There may be a way that we can add to our website, something about, are you thinking about selling your business? And we put that under the entrepreneur umbrella probably. And if so, COIN's not for you, but you might want to go talk to EDC.
Or it could be that these entrepreneurs that are thinking of starting up a business, well, there's one over here that exists, and maybe they do seller financing for you, and they could be your mentor.
Well, part of the process of, and we can get back to Rick, because one of the things that Rick and his team does is they take a look at the market. So you want to start a bakery. Well, we already have 5 bakeries. Wouldn't that be nice? But so and one of them wants to retire and sell their bakery business. So maybe you should take a look at purchasing that bakery business instead of starting your own bakery. That's the kind of stuff that Rick and his team take them through. So Rick and the SBDC are a good place for the kind of program you're talking about, Colleen. I think that's right.
I recently have talked to a lot of mergers and acquisition companies because, well, one, we're not a threat because they're doing, $6 million sales kind of thing is oftentimes their low threshold. And, we're talking about a mom and pop kind of shop. So they're happy to share the information with us. But, people don't understand that what someone's doing is they're buying the cash flow. And so that includes the assets, and that includes that it doesn't necessarily include the real estate, but the equipment and the inventory. And lots of times people think that that's separate, but it's not. It's right. What am I paying for to continue this flow, this cash flow? Sure. And what am I willing to buy for that? So what am I willing to pay for that? So anyway, I think especially with our aging entrepreneur community out there, especially in construction, there are some impressive companies out there that don't have transition plans. And it's kind of word of mouth that they're willing to sell, but oftentimes with construction, there's so much equipment, and and it's a hard conversation to have for them to understand that what their business is really worth. But go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, thanks for your patience, Rick.
No worries. Well, I mean, I do think that succession planning is a really, really important conversation to have as well. Because it is awful to see these really successful going concerns just evaporate. That's a huge loss. And I know that Cindy Brooks at the NODC has been having some conversations about that as well. She'd be a good person to touch base with.
She's on this call too.
Oh, hi, Cindy. I'm on my phone. I can't see who's on the call.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch back to something that Jay mentioned, and also as it relates to Kai's earlier question as well, about the relationships, and looking at Lion's track record and talking with some of the primary folks in that network. Their lending rate of to applicants is less than 50%. So a lot of folks come through the door that aren't able to either spark interest or satisfy the concerns of any of the investors there. But the way as far as the sort of the friends and family that you alluded to, Mark, the standard, it's a little fuzzy, but the standard looks like that you need to have at least 3 conversations with someone to establish a relationship before you get into the ask stage. That that's sort of what it looks like. Now, you can talk about projections. You can talk about, where you think your business is going to go. You can even allude to some of the needs that you're going to have and why, uses of funds kind of conversations. But that's sort of the standard. And Jim, if anybody's interested, I would highly recommend attending Jim's session next Wednesday, because he will get a lot more into this. And he's really going to spend a lot of time kind of giving folks strategies for due diligence, and really how do you evaluate a business and a business plan. And so he's going to really provide a lot of good information in that area. So I would definitely encourage joining. In fact, I'm encouraging the entrepreneurs that I'm working with right now to join that session, so they can kind of get the investor perspective, like, oh, this is what they really want to hear. So anyway, those would be good sessions. I just wanted to reinforce that. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. For the more sophisticated entrepreneurs, there's Keiretsu Forum. I know recently that Mino Carbon did a Zoom pitch at Keiretsu. This is a Seattle-based formalized version of connecting investors with startup companies. And it's not a one person startup company with an idea. They charge $5,000 to be part of their process. And anyway, and oftentimes millions of dollars are invested, and that Mino Carbon has already reached their first phase of investment goals, that their target was to get that done by the end of the year, and they've already met that. And so for more sophisticated, larger programs, that's always a great resource, is Keiretsu Forum, because they also have a lot of investors from New York that have put, through, there's a tax program that the name of it is escaping me, but it's basically, it's a nonprofit vehicle that they can invest, and then it's an investment, but they get their money back, and it's considered a tax exempt investment. So anyway, so
Colleen,
I know Cindy's on. Yeah.
Yes, we have Cindy on. I want to maybe give her an opportunity to talk about COIN if she'd like. But before we bring her on, we should answer Mike Skinner's question. He asked a pretty important question that I should clarify. So he asked about equity arrangements related to COIN, and I just want to clarify that these are generally not equity-based agreements between investor and borrower, like you see on typically on the show Shark Tank. There's almost always an equity play on those, and so this is definitely not. Nobody should watch Shark Tank and think that that's what this is all about. This is very, very far from that. This is all about relationships first, and then straight borrowing, and not an equity play. So hopefully that answers your question, Mike.
But could they do equity if they chose to?
I suppose they could, but that's something that's a little beyond what we envision. So I suppose that's available to them, but I think you're going to need attorneys and a bunch of other things involved if you go that far.
Mm-hmm. So Cindy.
Hi, thanks for opening it up here for a few last words.
There are a few.
I just wanted to say that there is a group of people in both Clallam and Jefferson working on regional investment together. And I'm really proud of the North Olympic Peninsula. We have so many, it's a complex system, right? It's a complex living system, this business and funding ecosystem. And not every county, not every region has both SBDC and CIE, access to enterprise for equities classes, WSU extension. We have Lion and now COIN, Craft 3. We have a robust network. And if we can connect the dots, I think we're going to be able to create like a developmental pathway for small businesses from startup through succession. And I'm really just happy to hear of all the work that people are doing in, in succession planning. And by the way, SBDC has a worksheet that you can access that will help a business run through 4 different scenarios for succession valuation. And it's a really good learning tool. And I think Mike Rykoff has access to that. So there are a lot of ways to explore the value of your company and opportunities for starting a company and finding financing at every single step along the way. And I think the EDC and the chamber are ideally positioned to connect us with each other. So I just wanted to commend the work that's being done and say I'm really happy to be here and be a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Cindy. Well, let's see. It's too bad we didn't get Jim on with us. And so Patty Morris, you mentioned something in the chat. And we're at 8:58, so then we'll give the closing remarks to Mark.
Yeah, just quickly, I've been doing valuations for companies and banks for commercial industrial properties for about the last, I would say, 7 years. And so I'm fairly familiar with what those valuations are because I am valuing those on a regular basis for different entities. So just be aware that if you needed any help, because I am doing them on Mason, Kitsap, Jefferson, and Clallam counties. So I'm pretty aware of regionally what values are that we're seeing for commercial industrial. It's business, it's the facilities, land, and brick and mortar. I do not value the business entity itself, but I am valuing all of the properties for the banks and other entities right now.
Great. Thanks so much, Patty.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark,
Yeah.
leave it to you. Next steps, I guess you shared about the classes, but
yeah, I just want to thank, everybody, you, Colleen, Erica, Cindy, Rick, Jim. There's just, this is a village that's put this together. And so I want to thank everybody for all the help on that. And really, if we're at the very beginning, and I'm really hoping that we get some Finn Rivers and some other success stories here in Clallam County, like Lion's been able to achieve. And we get there by starting now, and everybody here being interested, diving in, willing to listen and consider. There are no commitments until you decide to make one. And so I'm excited about next Wednesday's presentation by Jim. I'm really excited about the February 5th showcase that's coming up. And tune in to the Chamber monthly meeting on November 10th, where we're going to have a couple of entrepreneurs that Rick's been working with who are going to be presenting their business cases. It'll be a really good opportunity to take a look at what that looks like.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everybody. And Mark, we'll put a link to Clallam Invest on our website, and so that we can try to help drive traffic there for anybody that is looking online, and maybe put it some social media posts up.
Awesome.
All right. Okay.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks so much.